It is Sunday, the 8th of June, 2014. I'm here in front of the Unitarian Church in Montreal, engaged in my alternative spiritual practice of protesting against Unitarian Universalist injustices, abuses, and hypocrisy, not to mention stupidity, plenty of that. Today it is Flower Communion at the Unitarian Church in Montreal. Which brings to mind the cease and desist demand letter that Stikeman Elliott, barristers and solicitors litigation lawyer, Maitre Marc-André Coulombe, had me served with in June of 2012. This cease and desist demand letter falsely accused me of the crime of blasphemous libel on the false basis that I had allegedly made unfounded and vicious allegations to the effect that ministers of the Unitarian Universalist Association engage in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape, when in fact I done no such thing. That does not mean to say that I did not in fact blog about Unitarian Universalists engaging in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. It just means that my allegations were by no means unfounded, as falsely alleged by Stikeman Elliott, barristers and solicitors litigation lawyer, Maitre Marc-André Coulombe, on behalf of his client, the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations. So essentially, Maitre Coulombe falsely accused me of the crime of blasphemous libel on a basis of a lie. I can use the word lie here, I think, quite justifiably, because I have reasonable grounds to believe that Maitre Marc-André Coulombe knew perfectly well that the Unitarian Universalists that I blogged about were in fact convicted of such despicable crimes as pedophilia or rape. The blog posts that I had actually published state clearly in the blog posts themselves that these people were convicted. We're talking specifically about Reverend Mac Mitchell of the Northborough Unitarian Universalist Parish in the Boston area. We're talking about Richard Buell from the First Parish Norwell Parish in the Boston area. And those are the only two Unitarian Universalist rapists that I actually blogged about. That did not mean to say that I am not aware of other cases and so on, but I hadn't actually blogged about other cases. I'd blogged about those two specific cases because I had some good reasons to blog about those two specific cases. Interestingly enough, Richard Buell, who I correctly described as a pedophile rapist, because he'd been convicted of raping girls who were no older than 12 years old at the time that the rapes took place, and could have been as young as 6 years old, according to some of the estimates. Certainly somewhere between the age of 9 and 12 years old when the rapes took place. I described him as a pedophile rapist because that's exactly what he was. He was convicted of raping girls who had not even reached puberty or preteen girls. He's a pedophile rapist. Now, the interesting thing about him is that he wasn't actually a Unitarian Universalist minister, to the best of my knowledge, and he was in fact the only Unitarian Universalist who I'd described as a pedophile. I hadn't actually blogged about Unitarian Universalist ministers who could be properly described as pedophiles. I had not actually blogged about Unitarian Universalist religious educators, also known as Sunday school teachers, who could also be properly described as pedophiles, and even pedophile rapists. No, I just blogged about those two cases, and in an effort to intimidate me into removing the blog posts about Reverend Mac Mitchell and Richard Buell, the UUA hired Stikeman Elliott to accuse me of the crime of blasphemous libel. I really have no idea what they were thinking, but there's really no question that the UUA leaders who are responsible for this, and in particular, UUA Executive Vice President Kathleen K. Montgomery, who is responsible for coordinating the work of the UUA's attorneys, she, of all UUA leaders, had to be aware that Richard Buell and Reverend Mac Mitchell had actually been convicted of rape, that I had not actually made unfounded allegations, and yet she is responsible for the oversight of this legal letter which accuses me of making false allegations when I did no such thing. Now, an interesting thing about Kathleen K. Montgomery is that she has been UUA Executive Vice President for many years. In fact, she was UUA Executive Vice President, or Vice President in any case, back when Reverend Mac Mitchell was accused of raping teenage Tibetan refugees. Reverend Mac Mitchell lured teenage Tibetan refugees away from their families in India on the promise of a better life in America. You know, he would take them to America, he'd provide them with a roof over their head and food to eat, and he'd be sure that they were educated and so on. This was the pretext that he used to lure them away from their family. He then proceeded to repeatedly rape them over a period that's measured in months, if not years in some cases. And he was convicted. He went to jail. He's absolutely guilty of engaging in the despicable crime known as rape, according to Massachusetts courts of law. But what's interesting is that at the time, prior to him being charged, the UUA attempted to negotiate a confidential settlement with one or more of the victims. So the UUA attempted to try and cover this up, basically, and it's almost certain that Kathleen K. Montgomery would have been involved in this attempted cover-up of these rapes back when they occurred, when they came to light, and Reverend Mac Mitchell was accused and eventually charged and convicted back in the early 90s. So I just find it interesting that Kathleen K. Montgomery may well have been involved in attempting to cover up the Mac Mitchell rapes way back in the early 90s by attempting to negotiate a confidentiality agreement with his victims. And then so many years later, almost a quarter of a century later, attempting to cover up and hide the fact that he'd actually been convicted of these rapes. So just an incredible perversion of justice, censorship and suppression of critics, and yes, hypocrisy and hubris at its finest. On that note, we're going to wrap this up.